Lifestar, a world where new technology rises as the old magic withers, where the continents experience a period of tentative peace, and the people are left to wonder why so much of Lifestar's history is shrouded in enigma, obfuscated from both memory and record. Today's story focuses on a chance encounter between a creature of enigma and one who dwells in the shadows. Just another of the many tales from Lifestar. This is the story of Ellaria Mycelia, one of a race of subterranean elves known as the Teuren, and how her path took an unexpected turn. Ellaria grew up in a very warm and loving community of Teuren elves beneath the northern hills of the Aelfland in a town called Bilmore. She had always felt safe and protected, being raised by her extended family and community, who were always ready to help her and keep her out of harm's way. Her immediate family, however, were gone. It all started with her younger brother, Raylo. They had been playing on the outskirts of the village one day when Ellaria went to sit down for a moment and take a rest. She had only looked away for a moment at something glinting in the rock, probably no more than a fleck of ore reflecting in the lantern light. When she looked back to where Raylo had been standing mere seconds ago, there was nothing. No sound, no movement, no trace that he had ever been there to begin with. Suddenly, Ellaria was alone in this dim, silent cavern. After searching as deep into the cavern as she dared and finding nothing, Ellaria sprinted as fast as she could back to her parents in the village. Ellaria's parents soon decided that they would go out together looking for him, and told Ellaria to wait in the village. Ellaria's parents were accomplished explorers and knew the caverns well. A few days passed, and her parents did not return. Days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months, and before long, Ellaria was reaching adulthood with no sign that her family would ever be coming back. Ellaria left the village when she was 21 to study at the Grand College of Deavit in the elven capital of Shideum. Most would come here to study the old magic, but Ellaria was less interested in spellcasting and more in the history and legends that surrounded the far fathoms, the cavernous depths where she believed her family had ended up. She had heard enough horror stories about the place growing up, after all, and in her research she quickly came to realize that every one of those stories could have easily been true. However, over the years, a nagging thought kept plaguing her. If only I had stayed with my brother, if only I hadn't taken my eyes off him, he might still be here. They all might still be here. This feeling of blame haunted her into her adult years, and she turned to many things to try to block it out. She drank, she threw herself into her study and her work, and she receded into a life of solitary drifting. She told herself that she was making money, that she was going to assemble an expert team and go back and find out what happened to her family. But in truth, that thought terrified her. Was she ready to discover their fate? Would she survive such an expedition? Over the years, her work became less about some grand goal and more about surviving day to day. Her morals slipped, and though she still introduced herself as an archaeologist, she was a selfish treasure hunter at best, and an unscrupulous grave robber at worst. The only thing she kept from her childhood was a large coin made of a cheap umber-coloured metal called mergite, featuring a roughly engraved likeness of a dragon's head. Her father had gifted it to her during a lesson about value. It had no face value, as it was not a real coin, and it had little material value, since mergite was extremely common. However, It had been handmade specifically for Ellaria, and there was not another one like it in the entire world. Therefore, in sentimental terms, it was priceless, especially now, and she wore it on a chain around her neck at all times. On one fateful evening, as she was just about to leave a dusty old tomb during what had been a mostly fruitless expedition, she noticed a breeze coming from a narrow slit in the wall that seemed out of place. Acting on instinct, she gave the section of wall one solid shove, and the wall swung inwards to reveal a dark chamber. As she moved closer, the light from her lantern illuminated an eerie, sunken face. Her hand darted to her dagger, but she soon realized that it belonged to a skeleton, sat motionless and clearly long dead. Though she noticed that the skeleton belonged to no humanoid creature that she was familiar with, the thought soon vanished from her mind when she realized that it was up to its ankles in gleaming, ancient coin. Examining the chamber further, she saw various gemstones and artifacts strewn amongst the coin. Finally, her eyes came to rest on a small, locked chest, half buried in the heap. All of this wealth in a secret chamber, and yet it seemed there was still something worth putting under lock and key. Ellaria knew that whatever the chest held must be the real prize. She found her hand reaching towards the box before she knew what she was doing, when suddenly she felt a stab of pain. A trap, she thought. Quickly withdrawing her hand and seeing that she still had all of her fingers, her relief soon gave way to confusion as she looked at the chest before her. She had never known a treasure chest to cower away from her, as this one now was, peering fearfully up at her with its one large eye. She smiled at the creature and raised her empty hands, showing she meant no harm. If she could coax this creature to accompany her, it may be of some worth to the right collector. She slowly stretched out her hand once again and smiled reassuringly at the thing. Suddenly, she gasped in surprise as it hopped into the palm of her hand and morphed into a large Murgite coin. This was certainly odd, but what shocked her the most was that depicted on the coin was a perfect likeness of her father. So, that was episode 2, presented in a timely manner. Well, maybe not. Scrolling down behind me at close to light speed, you'll see our new homebrew article for today. This is actually a rogue subclass called the Mimetic Rogue. It involves gaining the assistance of a little pal in the form of a small mimic and learn all kinds of tricks to do with disguise and deception. Also, a little sneak preview, the Nephrin race, to which Ellaria belongs. It's not ready yet, however. There'll be a direct continuation of her story in a future episode, at which point you'll get this. There will be a direct continuation of her story in her future episode, at which point you'll have that race and its sub-races. Plus a new monster stat block. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, the link to the homebrew article will be in the description below. See you next time.